Hello, everyone.
Hey
Welcome to this
guys.
next, welcome to this next podcast. And
Yeah, welcome.
yeah, I'm excited.
Um,
I'm always excited for
yeah,
these casual
me
conversation.
too,
Yeah.
because I felt today I wanted to get it really, leave it really casual and let it unfold in a more natural way. So I didn't told Lionel which topic we're going to get into. So we're going to get a more realistic image of what is coming in, of what will show up as wisdom to share in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the topic today that I've picked, and it's around safety and fake safety responses in our body
Mm-hmm.
that we might have um, collected during our life, which aren't really keeping us safe, but are more the traumatic events that are still there,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And this safety, there are different aspects to it. And what I noticed is we're living our lives very in these automatic states. A lot we do is pretty automatic and stems from how we used to be, how our family was, how we learned to be in the world, um, through our experiences, also through our family history and DNA. And we have a lot of automatic responses. And I was noticing in myself that I was feeling safe in places that I actually not really needed to be safe, or it wasn't really true. Um, that I kept falling into patterns, also body patterns and thinking patterns that if something happens, then I had this automatic response, and that response was more like was used. I was used to be. I felt safe to do it in that way, as actually it's not really keeping me safe, but it's just keeping like a pattern alive that might be better off if I could see it and act differently.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of um, those kind of responses, and also like things we take in as we are little, as a child. We take in the world because um, we need to feel safe in a way, or our parents are our world, and they mirror us. They like let us see how to be safe in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn as children also a lot of like distorted ways of thinking, um, ways of being that are not really keeping us safe, but we're keeping like the family safe from like generations. But no one has had ever like stood still, that if those, or never had to like look at those pieces that might not even be working anymore. We often we can go for a long time doing the things we do, and moving along. Our life is like slowly like unfolding and things happening, and you can like create these lifestyles of you don't have to really look at things, you can. But if you really want to learn and grow and feel stuck in some areas, then from my point of view, it's very good to look at wherever you are, wherever, how are you feeling safe? What are you creating right now in your life that's making you feel safe in a way, but it's not really getting you where you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
very, very good. Very important topic.
so maybe Lionel, you have something already like you want to share?
So was that a question for me to answer?
Oh, just an open
Mm.
um, invitation.
Yeah. Um, Safety is it's something that we all need internally to experience for ourselves in order to have a foundation that we can rely on. One thing that comes up that I've experienced in the context of feeling unsafe most of my life is I didn't feel I had a floor, which you also helped me understand better, Marlu, over the time that we have known each other, is didn't have a floor, no foundation. So what does that mean? It means that on a psychological, energetic, emotional level, I didn't feel that there was a sense of grounding and a sense of um, a lower end under which things could not go any lower.
Mm.
When things got out of control or I wasn't feeling in control of what was happening in my life that I was feeling overwhelmed by on a daily
Yeah.
basis. And then it creates a lot of unsafety because every situation can potentially become a spiral that just feels like it goes infinitely downward. And um, and that was also paradoxically, of course, part of my journey within in order to feel the never endinglessness of that darkness, of that void, of that bottomless pit, in order to overcome some of those fears that were there, that were very deeply buried in that space. So really to create, but then we have to come back to reality and go, yeah, that's all great, that's the spiritual part, but on the earthly plane we need to create security, and we need to create a floor, a financial, also
Mm.
emotional, psychological, spiritual floor under which we are not prepared to drop any lower when things get tough, challenging, adversities happen, out of control situations overwhelm, so that we can actually manage our lives better, which is what I really had to do. And that requires a lot of building up resilience, character, inner strength, discipline. And by no means am I there, but at least I'm well underway with that. And that's one of the aspects of safety that I really
Mm-hmm.
see. And one of the reasons of where that came from in this early life of mine was that I had a lot of situations where I felt unsafe because of physical threats, abuse, bullying, and all kinds of experiences that, as a child, constantly placed me on a sort of hyper vigilant, on guard mode,
Mm-hmm.
which meant that I was always pulled out of myself, and I was never able to develop a very strong inner sense of strength. Um,
Yeah.
of course, if I used those situations to master them better, I could have developed more inner strength, which is the process that happened later spiritually for me to do that. But when I was younger, the overwhelm kind of shattered my inner sense of self-worth and being. And then it actually weakens you, and it pushes trauma into your system and into the cells of your body, which then becomes a
Mm.
life journey to find your way out of again. So those were some of the aspects for me around safety and unsafety that I can
Mm-hmm.
share here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your story. Um, I think a lot of um, I don't know, there's a natural process that also later in life, if we have learned due to trauma or whatever, build an unstable foundation because we had to survive, in some situations it feels we've protected ourselves.
Mm.
And later in life we we come across that some of those things we've created that used to protect us don't work in society, you know.
Hmm.
And then when we grow adults, then those pieces seem to like become more obvious and not working, and become then like the focus points of our lives to like resolve, you know, that like um and that foundation, and it we tend to or um we then need to look at the wrong foundation and the pieces that might feel safe but actually aren't keeping us safe, you know.
Hmm.
And then sometimes we really have to like rebuild our foundation and rebuild um, the way we feel safe in the world, in a more healthy way, because
Yeah.
we can like use to all those things we learned that are like now when we're adults are unhealthy, you know.
Hmm.
That can be
Yeah.
really tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I would say some of the things here that we do that we think are part of the safety that we need to create to protect ourselves from the world are based on unhealthy or unself-loving or even abusive past experiences or imprints or models or examples or feelings that we've built up that actually then create an environment that keeps in place the very imprint of the abuse that we've experienced from which the unsafety came,
Yeah.
and we actually insulate ourselves, which then becomes, which is what I've really experienced a lot as well, becomes
Yeah.
aloneness and re-experiencing trauma of abandonment and feeling cut off from life and unsupported and unloved, which
Mm.
actually then when you grow but you stay in that position, at some point that is necessary in order to find yourself. But when you
Mm.
stay in that position, you
Yeah.
actually recreate the experience of the abuse and the unsafety by not stepping out of that at some point when you don't need that experience anymore, and you need to find new ways of connecting with people and re-experiencing things differently now so that you can get
Yeah.
new imprints of connection and bring yourself out in a new way that does matter, that didn't matter in the past, etc., etc. So it can become a
Yeah.
self defensive mechanism that is as a pattern, like you were saying, and you don't let go of the pattern. Yeah.
Can like solidify when we're
Yeah.
getting older. It feels like some things that, you know, that aren't working, that like feels like they're solidifying and feel like they're harder to like overcome, or, you know, heal, or, you know, like um, get help for, you know. It's, that can be
Hmm.
really tough. And then you can also really feel alone in those pieces. That's also a piece, you know, the
Yeah. Oh,
loneliness.
yeah. Good. I was going to
Yeah.
mention another piece on the aloneness, because the aloneness, and I know healers and teachers and people that then strengthen that and push you into the zone where you need to be with yourself. Yes, that's true. But many, let's call it not trauma informed healers and teachers that haven't experienced the depths of some of those really deep wounds don't fully, I feel, understand or appreciate what state of mind and what frequency resonance a person, what experience of the world a person is in when they're experiencing and re-experiencing trauma.
Yeah.
And then the only options that they have in their system is to cut off from life in order to protect themselves. And then when they end up being alone,
Yeah.
um, they actually become sort of like, the trauma is, in the one hand, you think that that has created safety away from the world that has abused them. But on the other hand, like I was just saying, on the other hand, that aloneness makes you a victim, makes you vulnerable in a negative way. as a like a
Mm-hmm.
victim to you become prey essentially. And this is
Yeah.
like being in a war zone where you have your buddies, your team, right? You need to have them backing you because it creates the safety in the atmosphere that you're, the surroundings and the environment that you're in, which is a war zone, which is unsafe.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
been cut off from your team, you are very vulnerable to attack. And that actually is the same with these inner states of being. You very much can liken that to the PTSD experience after war or being in a war zone, because that's how I think underestimated people, how many people underestimate the effects of PTSD and trauma on many people in daily life, and how they experience, literally how they experience their daily reality,
Yeah.
through that lens of unsafety, and what things that they do that are maladaptive and dysfunctional, but that they don't really have another option because nobody's showing them the way and giving them imprints and examples and awarenesses to take that journey into the place of back into empowerment, back into their body, back into life. And I really feel that very deeply myself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that um, the piece of support often is missing, and you're doing the things you're used to and it's not getting you anywhere. But what also is not helping is that there are no, if you don't have people that can help you out of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're feeling the loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
then it can like feel even harder to like go through and do on your own, and like finding new ways of more healthy ways of feeling safe, and um, having having not not having support
Mm-hmm.
um, in some of those deep pieces where you can get like stuck in, and like you're feeling like nothing is really happening, or nothing is moving, nothing is changing, and you're in this mindset of, or you're like so used to that space being there, and you don't just feel inside yourself you can get out of it, and get into a more healthy way um, of feeling safe in whatever situation that might be, and or whatever aspect of life that might be, then um, not having the support, or not even being able to like let in support in those places. That is also like yeah, that's a really big thing. That's a really big thing.
I know
And
that for you that was also a big topic, and for me as well. Actually, one of the core wounds we can elaborate on in the context, maybe even still of safety that we're talking about here, is that lack of support. Is when you've experienced as a child already, or very young, at a very young age, that certain things were missing that were needed. So you've been neglected in some form that was
yeah,
conscious or unconscious, or and things came through, because I can feel the energy of what happens is you as a baby, you are very moldable, you are very changeable, and you take in a lot of the energetic, the unconscious and unseen aspects of the family
yeah,
system and the parents, and because you're like a sponge, you're taking all that
like a
information in.
sponge. Yeah,
So when you don't take in the information that you should be taking in, or you do take in information that's maladaptive, and you learn behaviors and mannerisms and actions that are not reflective of the actual accuracy of what's needed in the moment, and there's no attunement to you as a baby by the caretakers, by your parents or whatever, then you learn immediately imprints that are dysfunctional, and it's like becomes hard wiring. And then if there's enough malattunement and maladaptivity in the way that you are not receiving the love and the support and the attention and nourishment that you need as a young child or baby, then you learn, or when signals get misinterpreted and misread or misunderstood, and you get forcefully ignored or neglected or left alone or abandoned or whatever sort of thing,
Mm.
then
Mm-hmm.
you learn that that your needs don't matter, there's no support, and it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
what you ask for, it won't come. And
Yeah.
these are the very fundamental imprints that many people don't even realize that they have, that relate when their life is a big struggle and things don't work, and then they try and do it alone, and then they come into the aloneness that we spoke about, and then things don't work out, and then they're looking for help, but then the help doesn't come because they're asking for something that again repeats the pattern, that it's not going to show up. Then that is all based on trauma, but they're not getting the help that they actually do need. And
Yeah.
that is a very, very core aspect. And it can even lead to people getting angry, frustrated with life, disappointed, and then depressed. And all these layers happen on top. And in many
Yeah.
cases with men, anger and rage. And then in some extreme cases, as we're seeing in the world today, shooting other people and all these kind of big incidents in the world, like it goes into the when you have psychological and psychic issues, and then of course that also twists the whole system into that direction. It goes into can go into extremes that we see in the world today, but it all comes from the lack of a healthy foundation that we didn't receive, and that many others can't. Then, and this is the other piece, then we get the story that we're responsible for ourselves and others can't help us, and to an extent that's true, but it isn't the full truth, because actually what we need is more community, like tribes used to, more examples and imprints of people that can transfer information across the generations, so that we
Mm.
receive actually where it's not about filling an infinite hole of lack, but it's about being with that hole or that emptiness in a new way by receiving an imprint to transcend that wound into something that is more based on love for ourselves, so that we can become that example for others and help them heal themselves as well. And this is what
Yeah.
is often lacking in society, I see.
Mm-hmm.
And then people just don't progress very well on that journey. So
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
long, complicated story, but I wanted to share that around the topic of not feeling the support in life from that
Yeah. Thank
perspective.
you for your share. Um, really important pieces there. And I, especially if I get back to the piece of whenever you are a baby, when you're a baby and you're in the cradle, how you call it,
Mm-hmm,
then you're picking up all the energetics from your
mm-hmm.
families, what's in the household.
Or the
You know,
people
you
that visit.
Yeah, it's all energy,
Mm-hmm,
it's not about the words, it's underlying what's in the frequency of what is happening in the household. And then you already pick up, and it even starts earlier when you're in the womb, actually. You're like an open being, like learning from this new place you're ended up in, and then you're learning from whatever your mom is feeling in the womb when you're in the womb, you know? And so it starts there. And um, I don't know, when you're this little vulnerable baby, you might get imprints of the things in your family system that are like there for them, for maybe your parents, that feel like safe. If I behave like this, it feels safe. When I go out in the world like this, it feels like safe, because they have learned what is safety from their parents, and maybe haven't even thought about it or whatever. And this can be really deeply imprinted as we are young. And I don't know, if you're a baby, you also think you are very like this bright little being that is very powerful in a way. So you're very open, like everything comes in your system.
mm-hmm,
And um, but I don't know how it is, but you can, um, if you're like so open, it can also be like very frightening from some of the pieces you pick up. And
Hmm.
I think you can get also an imprint there of how lonely you might have felt in those places. Like
Hmm.
when you got all those information and things were coming in and I don't know, I could feel it in my system, you know, the the vulnerability of such a being that is there and getting
Yeah.
these imprints in safety, and then also you might like think you're all alone in whatever all the things you're feeling, you know.
Yeah. And I would say you're also very sensitive to that child, very young baby, really feels like baby level awareness, which is very primitive. It's very, it's basically unconditionally open because a baby doesn't have any filters. So you
Yeah.
take in everything, which is
Mm-hmm.
a great thing to be able to be so in touch with life. That's what spiritual people would often say. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also another side to that, which is that it's very difficult to live in a very dysfunctional world that we're living in today with so many people with such intense emotions and intentions that you feel all the time, wherever configuration you find yourself in. Um,
Yeah.
and um,
You're soaking
and
up the polarity, you know, the
exactly,
polarity of
yeah,
uh of those things is new kind of way. So you're like dealing with that as a
yeah,
little baby,
you
like
have to
being
become,
superhuman and like managing this polarity piece also. Like
yeah,
it's doing something with your system when you're aware of that, you know, it's
yeah.
also kind of
Well, and then your path also becomes that you have to become extremely aware, because then you are super empath and you have to become extremely aware of where your boundaries lie and also what you don't want to take on and digest for other people. And also,
exactly.
in the meantime, an extra job is to focus on yourself, and that's a whole task on and of itself. And then also live your own traumas and wounds in order to grow and progress through those. And then
Yeah.
there's another job, which is the earthly job of taking care of your life. So you have like a triple job. And this is, again,
Yeah.
most often underappreciated and misunderstood. And also by Western people, in, from my perspective, in settings that are not so conscious and aware of how much people are actually caring and doing, like in this case,
Mm.
you as an example. And I think that a lot more compassion and love and appreciation and support, like as we were saying in this podcast, support is needed for people in such a position. And the irony is we get less and less support because people are more
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed and societies are less equipped to manage the needs of people that are needing them. And then you have your own wounds and traumas that have disconnected you from asking for help based on what we've just shared.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes very, very difficult. It becomes
Yeah.
Mount Everest difficult.
Yeah. A lot
And
of
so the
the nowadays systems are full, you know, if you go to like a mental health
saturated, overwhelmed, yeah,
practitioner, you need to wait 3 months or
yeah,
6 months. It can
for,
be
yeah, for
like,
support. And also systems, Western systems, medical systems, social systems are overwhelmed often in many countries. But that, oh, and that's another topic we can talk about sometime, because I have learned over my lifetime some things around. I've been in a lot of extremes around this, not asking for any support, asking all the time only for support. And where is the right source of support coming from? What do I actually specifically need? And who can give that to me? And how do I do it on my own if I have to? And
yeah.
so we can talk about that in another podcast. That's another beautiful topic.
One
But
one piece one piece I want to mention there
yeah.
is we can feel safer, not even asking help, you know,
Mm-hmm.
although it's not really helping us. We are
Yeah.
experiencing that for
Mm-hmm.
us that is being safe, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and that's, so now you're bringing up, I think what you're saying is what I see a lot of women also particularly do, men as well, I guess, is they become hyper independent. They become very, very
Mhm.
like I don't need any help. I've arranged. I've got my own life together, and I've managed it. And it becomes very
Yeah.
focused on the material realm. Like I have my own job, I have my own house, I have my own, I have everything. I have money in the bank. I have my own security and safety, and I don't need anything from anyone. And that goes even deeper into the relationship dysfunctional um, setting, where they often miss, these women, if I take women as an example, they often miss the connection with men, and then they don't find relationships, and then they end up becoming alone. And one of the reasons is because they've become too hyper independent. So if you don't need anything, then why would you need a relationship? Your spirit's saying to you, well, if you don't want to be open and vulnerable and authentic with yourself and with the world, and if you don't want to put yourself in a position where you give and take, and where you open yourself up to things that you can't do very well on your own, then why would a relationship be necessary? Why would it come into your path? And so this is another one of those things where safety can work against you if you try and compensate too much based on feeling unsafe to be yourself. In this case,
Yeah.
for women to be their natural feminine essence,
Yeah.
then things don't work out for you. So that's
Yeah.
another aspect I see very often, that many
It
times
can be
when I've
tough.
referenced that
Yeah.
to women, they got very angry because they don't like to hear, because that's what makes them feel unsafe. So,
Yeah.
so
I
you have to
think
be very
men
careful.
also, for women and men, it's like a different, there are different pieces there, you know,
Yeah.
because we have like different goals in life,
Hmm.
and some like cross and some don't, but we can like feel, we have often some parts of our lives that feel safe,
Hmm.
you know, like work, we can have our work um, together, and then that part of life can feel safe. But um, but sometimes it's not enough, you know. You have to, you then you notice yourself that other parts of your life are out of balance, and you know that there is no safety there. There's no,
Hmm.
the things are not going well. So you have to like
Hmm.
look at which pieces are helping me, that are safe in a healthy way, and which pieces are I'm keeping alive that actually are unhealthy kind of
Hmm.
safety, you know.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
that's the tricky part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. And so one question that comes to mind before we come to a close for this podcast. So what are some of the things that people can do when they feel unsafe and they're isolated and alone and they're stuck and they're looking at the world through a lens of their own very independent or not, or very dependent life, where they don't know how to move forward, and they're stuck in all kinds of patterns and situations or relationships and dynamics, and they don't know how to change their lives? What are one or two things that they could do that we could still mention to help people as
I
the
think
audience listening to this?
that's a really good question. I think this can be a tough one, because sometimes you need to really be honest with yourself, and like get a piece of paper, and like write down some of the topics of your life, of some of the areas of your life, and then feel into, how is this keeping me safe, and you know, where is this keeping me safe from, you know. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you can like unravel some of the pieces there, like
Mm-hmm.
a job, some kind of configuration keeps me safe from not actually doing what I really want, because I don't know what will happen then if I really follow um, um, that thing that I'm always trying to postpone, but keeps getting pops up now and then, and I know somewhere I feel a lot of joy for it, but there's also a lot of unsafety
Mm-hmm.
uh, for your system, because you don't know what you will get, you know, those kind of pieces. But
Yeah.
it can be really, um, I don't know, journal. It's a really good one, and write
Journaling
down
is
all the
one.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
never really worked so well for me, to be honest, but I hear it a lot. So maybe for some people this is beneficial. Um, And I've heard that it would be beneficial for me, but at the same time, I do write things down, but I don't really feel like it's actually changed my life very much. Let's put it that way. So, but then
Mm.
again, that's just to mention that honestly, but that's just my experience. What I come with is one thing is maybe what you can do as a little exercise is visualize a ring of support around you that you didn't receive as an energy, because I'm more, so this is one aspect that could really help you to feel less alone, but more in connection with a almost like a council, spiritual council around you of
Mm-hmm.
people or elders or people that
Yeah.
want to transfer for wisdom to you in the
Mm-hmm.
place that you're in. That's not a place that's accidental or random. There's a reason why you're in the place that you're finding yourself in. And that can give you that nourishing environment and begin to create an imprint of an experience of not being so alone in that place. That begins opening you up to more safety. That
Mm-hmm.
will begin to open you up to listening to more of your intuition. And then you come to that point that Marlou was just sharing, which is that you can then follow what is coming to you in order to change some of those areas in your life that maybe you have written down that you know um, are parts of patterns that are keeping you in an unsafe position, even though they may seem that they're keeping you safe. They're actually protecting you away from receiving intuition to guide you into a better direction of life. So that's one tip that
Yeah,
actually fits quite
really.
well together with journaling if it works for you, that I
Yeah,
wanted to share.
exactly. Sometimes we need the feeling of being supported in a place
Yeah.
before we can even start opening up and getting a piece of paper and journal, you
Yeah.
know? So,
So these work together very nicely. And yeah, they need them both. And there's a lot more. This is just a very short summary on this today's topic on safety that we've discussed. And next time we'll continue with another topic. And I'm sure we'll revisit many of these topics again. But let's keep it short and sweet for now. So as we end, is there anything you want to add, Marlou, real quick?
no, this was
No?
beautiful. Yeah, leave it
Okay.
open. Thanks so much. Yeah,
Thanks for listening. See you next
yeah.
time. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.